too cool. They're not little anymore. They're too cool to even say bye to us.
Well, because there's friends on the left.
Welcome back to the channel. It is an exciting day, a very exciting day, right, Heddy?
It is.
Because what time did I get up?
Oh my gosh, you guys, he was up before 5 a.m.
It was like 4:55.
Before 5 a.m.
But it was close. But today's exciting. Why? Because we are going to the coldest place in the United States of America.
Yes.
It happens to be in Delaware.
Yes.
And it happens to be a company that we use. Well, it's gonna, some of their components, some of their upgrades are gonna be going in Gaston, the Charger. And we already have a lot of their cooling upgrades in the Beast.
Let's embarrass them.
Are you pumped? Come on, get pumped! So I wiped down the Beast this morning and the Charger so they can look good, because we are going to Mishimoto. We're going to visit one of Heather's old friends from school that we actually had no idea was working there. It's kind of cool. They had already been a supporter of the channel prior to even knowing that information. I'm pumped, guys. I'm pumped. We're going to get a little inside look at their R&D and their facility there.
Wait, can I need to study real fast. What's R&D stand for?
Research and development.
Okay.
We're out at Mishimoto, and yes, there's a tractor trailer going by us. As soon as I begin the video, we hit one puddle 6 miles away from the house, and well, that's why we can't have nice things. I mean, seriously.
Oh
Wipe this whole truck down. At least the Charger doesn't look too bad. I saw you try to avoid it, and I really appreciate it, but there was no avoiding
there,
it.
I couldn't.
Perfect. Who drew that? Because that's like exact.
We need that for our...
You did that, Keelan? That's awesome.
This is our campus. We have 3 buildings. This is where, it used to be all in this one building. We've grown every year. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've separated the 3. This is more the very corporate area. All the VPs meet over here. Creative conference room, customer service, marketing, all the paper stuff, all the cubicles are mostly over here. Big decisions come through like this building, but it's still a cool building. So being that it was the first one, we did R&D in the garage back here. So if we were doing big diesel stuff, everybody heard it. Cool. So we wanted to separate that. Our creative design's over here, our sales staff's over here, HR's over here. Like, it's all themed automotive stuff. We've done MX stuff, motocross, everything we've been featured in, we kind of hung on the walls over here. We have some broken rads and some other products hung on the walls as well. Very small display from one of our SEMA booths. These will get bigger and bigger as we go through campus. A lot of stuff you don't see behind the business happens here. So it's good to get this kind of in your view first. Executive conference room, so a lot of like company-wide meetings will happen here. Our lounge, we'll meet here twice a month, every 2 weeks or so, and we do like company announcements. We call it wine and cheese. So we'll drink some beer, drink some wine, we'll have snacks, and then we'll listen to like new product releases. We do like tournaments with pool, basketball, ping pong. So like we try to have that, like, that fun environment, because it is car. The car aftermarket is, you know, you want to keep the fun environment. Everything's car themed. We make car parts, it's fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a blast.
Yeah, so back there was actually the original R&D center. So you could see it would be extremely loud when we're doing like high horsepower cars or anything with a diesel truck. So we knew once we expanded, we had to kind of bring another building into it and more engineers. So with that comes more product too. So the next building is our East Coast distribution, which is pretty big. So when you order stuff, or we get you stuff because you're a sponsored driver, that's where it comes from. So it's pretty interesting. So this entire building is our warehouse, just for Delaware.
Now, how many warehouses do you guys have throughout the United States?
2. We have this one in Sparks, Nevada, and then we have Sydney and London. Operations, accounting, and the warehousing's on here. This is the quietest building on campus. Yeah. I wouldn't think that. Yes. So we brought this online not that long ago, and we're still expanding. But when we first got the warehouse, it was, we just wanted to come in and do donuts in here. This is all just inventory that can go to our distributors or direct to consumer right from the East Coast. Yes. In a way, if you know what you're looking for. You don't realize how many parts you kind of sell until you put them in a building.
So many different vehicle makes, models.
Yeah, and we work on everything, and that's in the next building. Yeah, the next building you'll see it's just diverse of what we do. But if there's opportunities in the marketplace, especially if there's a factory flaw and we want to fix that or take that on engineering-wise, we attack that pretty hard, and then we house the inventory for it. So there's a lot of different SKUs, and just this whole operation is just mind-blowing on how a warehouse actually works at this scale.
Yeah.
So it's not like the mom-pop shops where they're making things in-house and UPS shows up every day. We're talking like trucks show up every day and stuff comes in, stuff goes out. So it's kind of mind-blowing.
Sets you guys apart from others is your warranty.
Yep.
If you have an issue, they cover it no matter what.
We try
no
to
matter what.
We try to take engineering serious, and we go to the extremes to make something. So we kind of all right, if it does fail, it's on us. We'll give you a new one. And we're always constantly revising even old SKUs. So if there's issues coming up, we just take care of it. But we'll see why it did that and make the product better. So we'll have different revisions of an old product for years. So, and I don't know if you've ever seen the biggest painted orange wall, but this is probably it. Yeah, so this kind of shows the map of what we're at, which is, it's crazy. R&D and engineering facility. We do the most fun stuff. So if you're a gearhead, this is where you want to be.
Oh, wow. Entryway, not employee.
That's the reaction we want, is the oh wow. So these are past SEMA displays. We decided to put them in the foyer. So when you walk in, all the office setting is in our little aquarium here of people. And once we go out in the warehouse, I'll explain that. But we custom built basically this whole building.
I've seen this one a few times.
Yeah, he's been around the internet a while. Even this staircase was custom built. It's all exhaust tubing, held up by wrenches, custom made just for this mez. Prepare to be wild. All our engineers sit here, the whole product staff, video production, project managers, segment managers, drafter, anything that has to do with production and product oriented. So it's all on the bottom level here. Upstairs we have conference rooms, we have our kitchen and a lounge area, but you can oversee the entire floor from up there. The biggest expense of the build out was actually the glass. This is just a regular mezzanine system that we modified, but we actually put all this glass in just so you have that separation. So you have climate control, it's nice. There's not a lot of exhaust fumes in there. We have a great extraction system, which we made. Anything creation-wise, concept, what we want to make, what we think about making, what's in the marketplace, all goes through here. So this is the main creative station for the whole company. Our fabricators here, all the engineers, my department, which is innovation, so I just try to invent stuff that can go to market. Heavily in professional racing is where my background is, so I've seen a lot of parts fail. So I can help them build something that doesn't fail. And we try to stay ahead of technology. So this whole row is our technology row. So we have a 3D scanner, Faro arm, so we can take a car, scan what we need to scan, get it into SolidWorks, make a model, 3D print it, and test fit it all within a very short time frame, a couple days, if not a day. Yeah, so you have to stay ahead of the curve, and to go from a scan, especially if it's not a car we buy, we can scan it, have a part that we can test fit, see what it looks like in an engine bay, and then move forward with a design or whatever we want to make for that particular platform, which is anything, trucks, cars, ATVs, side-by-sides. We're getting requests for stuff like that. So it's everything. The market's pretty big. This is an older 3D printer. We still use it. All these are 3D printers that are less subjective to like heat and condensation and being in the shop. And we have a smaller one in there that prints in really new materials. So we can 3D print a part and put it right on a car for testing where it won't melt. So we've done like MAF housings, anything with a geometry we needed really tight tolerances or like airflow constraints, we would print it from there and go right to the dyno and then make changes on that before we're into mass production. Super interesting. So like nylons, all these weird exotic materials, we can print rubber, O-rings, all kinds of stuff on that printer. So that's why it's in there, because it's more temperature sensitive, humidity sensitive. So we can do all kinds of stuff before we ever send a drawing for mass production, just to flush out any problems. So we use these like pretty heavily. Flow bench, anything that flows air through it, intercooler pipes, catch cans, hoses, we can flow and get measurements. If we're making us like an intake, an upgraded intake, we'll take the stock one and put all the flow measurements down on paper and in our software. If we're making something, we always want to exceed it. We show everybody. We're super transparent with what it flows, what it does, and then on the dyno, if it makes power, if it doesn't make power, we don't inflate nothing. This is it. This is what you got. So if we made an intake, makes 10 horsepower, we're not going to fudge it. It makes 10 horsepower. Here's the flow numbers. This is why. So this gets used quite a bit. We don't just throw stuff on a car and like, oh, there you go. It's gone over with a fine-tooth comb, and anything we can do to make it better, we do. A lot of testing. Yeah, and we want to make sure it's right, because we don't want to put nothing out and be like, it's wrong or have any issues with it. So we do it like extreme testing, all the stuff up front, and then once we actually have the part for production, like I'll test the crap out of it to make sure there's no issues, and if there is, we fix it. But we know what could be a potential issue, especially with new cars. Like our Jeep, you put a catch can on it, it'll throw a check engine light. So we made a new filter element that flows exactly what it sees from the factory, even with the catch can in the mix. So we have to pay attention to all that stuff. Sort of our studio, my experimental area. So I'll do a lot of experiments over here, I guess you could say. This is like a 3D printed part we're making that I'm gonna make a rubber piece from. So we'll use this and make tooling. So I'll get this all nice and shiny, and then we'll make a prototype rubber part that we need for an intake through our 3D printed tooling.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's all just Legos, really. Car guys love Legos and erector sets, and it just evolved that we can make our own Legos now. We launched an intercooler line, so we were doing a video shoot. That's why all these cores are out here. This was our truck display at SEMA a couple years ago. So it's mostly made from our parts and some big diesel stuff from a battleship from the Philly Navy Yard.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. This small area gets a lot of use. I'm over here a lot, either making something, helping the engineers, doing video shoots, whatever we have to do. And then each engineer has their own bay. They'll spend, I guess, 50% of their time out here and then back in on the computer doing CAD, SolidWorks, making models. We run a lot of our testing through software too, so we can see if we're gonna have any weak points just within the software before we even make anything. But we'll do all the prototyping after that.
All the ramps.
Yeah, they don't have as many issues as the Ford. So Ford kind of, like what I said before, if we find a factory flaw, we try to attack it, and Ford gives us a lot of those opportunities. Not to bash Ford because it's bread and butter, but and they always change things nonstop, and we have to stay ahead of it. Engineering will come out, like use their bay, take stuff apart, scan things, bring the scanner over, go back in, model something, test fit, 3D print. So it's a ton of back and forth.
That sounds like such a cool job. Like I could never do it. I don't have the brains for all that, but that just sounds really cool.
Yeah, they're super smart. We just got a Kia Stinger. This is another car we just bought, and it's surprisingly awesome. It's a twin turbo all-wheel drive. It's basically built by Hyundai now, but it's got a 3.3 liter V6 twin turbo. It's actually surprisingly fast and fun. Sort of like a Audi beater, I guess you could say, like in that neck of the woods. This is a perfect thing to show you. 3D printed end tanks and what our core size would be. So when we're starting to develop parts, and we're going to develop a lot of parts for the platform, take it apart, we've scanned the area, the engineer built this and he modeled this whole thing, and then we'll go to a 3D print, we'll give our fabricator the core size, we'll glue them together, and we'll do our test fit. So this is like, you're seeing a good part of the initial process on developing a platform.
That's pretty. So that's how
This is how we do
Get
it.
the intercooler on the beast.
Yep. And then, we'll put it all back together, make sure nothing's rubbing, everything's good. It works with all the crash sensors. It's the guided cruise control, the radar cruise control. So all these things have to work around all that. And any other products we make, we kind of look at the area we have now and know like where we can put stuff. If we want to do like a transmission cooler, if we want to do a bigger rad, if we want to do an oil cooler, like this is our area to work and we know where we can put that stuff. But this kind of is where it all starts. And it starts with this, taking it apart, scan it, and then test fitting with different technologies, plastics and metal. Even it's just a box, but that's the core size we would spec out. And it's spec'd out for the fin density and how much flow we need to get through the rad. It's all calculated. We do the same thing. We have a catch can on it, so we'll put that on there. Make sure we're tapping in the right areas, run the car, put 1,000 miles on it, monitor all the OBD2 data. Cars are finicky now, so we make sure we're emissions compliant. It's quite a bit of work just to make a can and a bracket, and we'll have meetings on the bracket, if it looks good, if it's the right hoses, if it's tapped in the right spot, did it collect anything? We send it out to the lab, what's collection, is it oil, is it more fuel, is it moisture? So just for a catch can, all that goes into it.
What is the main benefit of a catch can?
Most new technology, new cars, is direct fuel injection. With removing the port injectors, you're also removing the fuel washing the back of the valves off, cleaning them, detergents they put in the fuel. So when the injector is in the cylinder, it has to be a closed system. So you'll have any positive crankcase ventilation, put the hydrocarbons and oil mist back into the intake tract. And what that does on a hot intake valve, it just sticks to it. And over a very small amount of mileage, you'll have this big caking up on the back of the valves, intake tract, everything. Fills the intercoolers with oil, intercooler pipes with oil, sensors with oil. So if you catch that before it goes in, I think a lot of the German cars have like a 30,000 mile walnut blast the valve procedures now because they're direct injected. So basically you're gumming up and crusting up the entire intake tract if you don't catch it. Some manufacturers have gone back to like a port injection and a direct injection just to wash the valves off, believe it or not. All that carbon buildup will get on the valves, get on the pistons. It could raise your compression. I mean, there's a lot of bad things that carbon can do. So if you collect it before it gets back in the track, that's the biggest reason for the catch cans. So it's basically maintenance and to avoid just costly stuff down the road, plus performance. Oil's not a good thing to spray into the engine. It's good to keep it lubricated, but it's not, the flash point's bad. It can lower your octane rating in the fuel, can bump the compression up without you even knowing over time. It makes a huge difference for as small and as, in my opinion, inexpensive as something like that is for the long haul, especially on a performance vehicle. You don't want this stuff in there. And we want to stay like, in a closed loop of the engine so you don't smell the hydrocarbon, you don't smell, there's not oil like everywhere if you just vent it to atmosphere. It stays in the system, but there's serviceability with it. So it's important, and that's why we manufacture and sell a lot of them, and it's one of the first things we do when we get a vehicle in is catch can. 2-liter turbo Wrangler, it's the new JL. So this engine is a mild hybrid that we're testing. Some of our intercooler pipe now is what we're testing. This is a pre-production piece. The factory one's plastic, and then we're putting all our testing data from the dyno. We've already floated on the flow bench. It flows 20% more, and now we can see those gains from it flowing better in power and horsepower and torque now. So it's awesome. And it doesn't have an alternator. It has a generator and a 48-volt battery system and a 12-volt battery system. So what it does, it basically has an electric supercharger. The generator spins the engine and gives you 70 foot-pounds of torque instantly, shuts off at 1,500 RPM, then the turbo kicks in. Yeah, that's in a Wrangler. You can feel the instant, that electric kind of motor torque instantly. It's awesome. And then the switch to the turbo you don't even feel it. So it's just basically, you hit the gas and it just gets up, instant torque, and it's straight flat across. It's awesome. So there's going to be a lot more of that coming down, so we have to stay ahead of that technology curve. So there's a lot of electronics involved in it. It's a new platform. It has a lot of weird things we've never seen before. So now you're starting to mix like the electric, hybrid, and gas turbo engines all in this, even in a Wrangler. You have this small footprint, and there's a lot of high-tech stuff involved in it already. So it's coming. That's like the next wave is going to be that blending of those technologies. So we need to stay ahead of it. We use the Dynojet and we have Dynapacks. We use them both depending on the engineer and what we want to see. Some of the trucks can't go on the Dynapacks because we'll just torque them out. They'll just shut off because the trucks make insane torque, as you probably know. Any of the hard parts, we water jet any brackets and make all this stuff in-house and test fit and even do short run production. We're making a part, we design it, we get it, like, okay, now we need thousands of them. What do you do?
Yeah.
So it's the creation though, and the concepting and finding any issues starts here. Any bracketry for catch cans we make here, any bracketry for the intercoolers we make here, flanges, intercooler pipe, there's a ton of flanges now, so they have pressure sensors all over them, so water jet all that, weld them on. This is our boom box. So for safety reasons, we have like a dunk tank over there. If we want to pressure test anything, only goes to 10 PSI, that's it. This, anything over 10 PSI of air or water pressure goes in this box. So if there's a failure, nobody gets hurt. And when something does fail, it's pretty loud. That's why we call it the boom box. But
We like to blow things up.
we like to blow things up, absolutely. So Mike's actually putting a heater on it so we can heat the chamber for temperature readings, and we're gonna put pressure into some of hoses or whatever we're testing. So this is before it goes to like mass production. This is sort of that extreme testing. So we'll start baking stuff and adding a lot of pressure to see if it fails, see what any areas that need improvement, if the clamps are good, if what torque rating they let go at, if there's a joiner coupling, what happens to that. So all this is highly engineered experiment.
Do a lot of cycle testing.
A lot of cycle testing. We'll cycle like hoses and catch cans for weeks on end. So you'll get like 3 to 4 100 PSI spikes every 10 seconds, and we'll just let that run. So we know like our cycle testing, we've done 50,000 cycles on this fitting or this hose, no problems. If we have an issue, we can address it before it goes out into the real world. So a lot of thought goes into just a clamp or just a hose or just a fitting. What we want to do is probably bring your car in and then get some like really good photographs of it under like maybe the flag or in the shop, and then we'll go out back and we'll do some fun stuff if you want. What do you think of the place?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's impressive,
I
right?
said awesome like 100 times, but it really is.
I think the scale, a lot of people don't really understand. Okay, we have a huge warehouse all full of whatever we're designing here. So once it gets out of this creation stage and goes into production, and we have a lot of them, like it's that same part in all those boxes. And then all the operations behind it and coordinating distributors and getting it to the consumer, and then sales or customer service, all that across the street. So it's pretty wild. Trying to make it fun.
You definitely can feel the vibe.
Yeah.
Just walking
100%.
through here.
hope you guys found this video informative. Thank you for having us out to your facility today. We had a great time.
Yes.
Learning experience as always, and that's what this channel is about, learning. If you guys did enjoy the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you stopped by for the first time, make sure you smash, tap, do something to that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell, ding ding. We love you guys. We'll see you in the next upload.
Yeah, we don't sell tires here. I would say there is a tire rack right around the